This is Epic Challenge, where we discuss, debate, and dedicate 20 minutes each week to a hot topic in the world of Warhammer. If you give a damn about tabletop gaming, then this is the show for you. Now, here are your hosts, Kicker and Nicky Dee.
Hello and welcome everybody to this week's Epic Challenge, a show that challenges your ideas on Warhammer so we can discover the Imperial truth, the heresy of chaos, and the obscurity of the Xenos. Kicker, my friend, welcome back. How are you this week?
I'm doing great. Here's my thought for the day, guys. A 40K event is basically just speed dating to find new friends. I got back from the Charity Cup event we did. I'm like, man, there were 6 rounds, and I think every person that left had 6 new best friends. It was sweet. What about you, man? Life is good?
Yeah, life is good. And actually, Kicker, with that, speaking of new friends, let's introduce our guest for this week.
Okay, guys, our guest today is perhaps best known as a DJ and an esports commentator, but he's a legit Warhammer fan and a player too. The UK takeover in Warhammer is continuing with this show as our guest hails from the UK. You may know him from his Street Fighter days of commentating or repping Blood Angels and World Leaders on the 40K tabletop. It's Logan Sama. DJ Logan is a big deal, guys. Google the guy. All right, just Google him right now. Like, take some time, Google him. He's a celebrity, folks. We're very fortunate to have him. Let's welcome DJ Logan in. Where's he at? Where's he at? You got him in there?
There we go.
Sweet.
Very, very kind of you to say. I don't know about that, but it's a pleasure to be speaking with you on camera as opposed to, via Discord or any of our calls that we've had. Thank you so much for wanting to talk to me on here. I'm very interested to find out why you want to talk to me. So I'm not exactly internationally renowned for my accolades in the competitive 40K scene. So
that's okay. That's okay. All right. Well, guys, as is tradition on our show, we kind of have to go into our week in Warhammer. Kind of if you've done some hobby progress or Logan, or somehow participated in the hobby in one way or another. I had a game against a buddy of mine, Tyler, who's running all sorts of tricks with his Yunari. Yes, he did beat me, but I was really impressed with how my Vespid were doing. They made me proud. So I had 10 during that event. I currently now have 20 on my hobby desk, getting ready for next week so I can go back and fight to hopefully win. Nick, what about you, man? I think you had just a little event you attended, right? Just a
little event. Last week we had JC Watts on from the 21st Legion Wargaming, who was running the Battle to End Alzheimer's. So that was this past weekend. The event had 155 players for the Warhammer, for the 40K GT. There was also AOS, there was D&D, I think MCP or something else that was there, but a bunch of events. I finished 3-2. I dropped before the last round so I could help with cleanup and some of the things like that, because when your team is running the event, you get conscripted in to do those sort of things, right? But I had a great time running my Blood Angels. Awakened Dynasty might be my new mortal enemy. I think that was it. And then between the GT and then seeing a concert on Friday, I got a little sick as well. So Kicker, it was like you had no voice and we're under the weather. It got passed on to me. So I'm going to try to battle through this week's episode. Logan, how about for you? What have you been up to in Warhammer recently?
I'm currently looking at some Goremongers on my desk now that I have 4 days to get painted, because this weekend I'm going to Birmingham for the Glasshammer GT, which is going to be my third event in 10th edition as part of my reintroduction to Comp 40K. And I'm currently treading water until that World Eaters Codex gets announced and I can find out exactly what I need to hobby up. Although one of the main reasons for me kind of focusing on World Eaters was the fact that they don't have a huge array of data sheets. So I'm kind of confident that I'm not going to have to redo my whole thing. And that's why I didn't commit to just generic Space Marines, because as we all know, with every different iteration of the meta, you have to kind of like repaint another 800 points of Space Marines every time a balance slate and I just can't hobby that quickly. So I'm just getting my World Eaters done, and maybe after that I'll try and get some Space Marines done as well.
Nick, I'm going to put Logan on the spot this second. You just said hobbying. So Mr. Logan, DJ Logan, I know you're a busy human being. Are you actually painting your own miniatures?
Yeah.
Man. Awesome.
So I actually started a YouTube channel with 2 of my buddies called Engage on All Fronts, which is all about getting back into Warhammer 40,000 in a serious way. But it literally does what it says on the tin. It's engaging on all fronts. So as much as I am inspired by the excellence of organized play in 40k and some of the incredible players that just know this game inside and out and make incredible plays on the tabletop. I'm equally as inspired by people that are able to paint to competitive standards, and I'm just as involved in that. So I've been putting time into painting, getting involved in that community as well. There's a really big competitive painting community in Europe. I was just at Salute, which is a big convention, and saw some of the guys that entered there. That was literally this week, and yeah, I'm having a great time doing all of it. Basically, little me who got involved in 40k all the way back in 1993 and never fell out of love of it is just having a whale of a time right now, getting involved in engaging on all fronts of the hobby. It's great.
I love it, man. I love that.
So Logan, you're bringing 30 years of experience in Warhammer as the hobby, and as I was at an event this weekend, it was one of those things to me where I definitely realized where it's like, there's people here that could be my child. I think that's the case for all of us at these events. But Logan, other question for you with your World Eaters, what's your paint scheme for them? Are you doing modern 40k? Are you doing heresy? Are you doing your own unique thing?
I'm trying to teach myself to paint like heavy metal style. So I've just been copying. So they're completely standard, and I've been using a website called Heavy Archive, which gives you all of the heavy metal paint teams like recipes to paint with. I've been following that along. So very standard.
We're getting. I mean, I work full time in this industry. Have you heard of Heavy Archive?
No, I'm pulling that up, and I'll be taking a look at that later here.
Yeah, it's run by a guy called Infernal Brush, called Dave, and he just won the Slayer Sword for the last European Golden Demon. He did an amazing Trog, the king of the cave trolls.
Yeah, one of those guys. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not lying. Like, I really do love painting as much as I love the comp scene of 40k.
Yeah, it's Logan. You mentioned that you're working under World Eaters. After this past weekend, I was inspired because Death Guard is also getting a new codex. So my future hobby progress kicker is going to be me sitting down and painting Death Guard, because I'm in the same position, Logan. I don't know what's coming yet. We know it's coming soon, and I want to be ready for it. But let's go ahead and let's jump into today's episode. So we're welcoming you, our listeners, and Logan, you to Epic Challenge, where we are discussing the hottest topics in Warhammer. And one of our hosts is going to be presenting a topic of debate. That'll be me for tonight. And between our guest and our other host, Kicker, this will be you for tonight. You're going to be discussing your informed, your educated, or maybe it's just passionate opinions about what can be challenging or what we can do to make Warhammer, the Warhammer community, and the Warhammer competitive scene better and more improved. So we're going to get down to the bottom of what is the Imperial truth, or what is going to be the deception by the Chaos Gods. Now, this is where I'm going to be putting on my Imperial Commissar hat. I'm going to order us to move, and begin the debate for tonight. And
promise me you won't try and shoot me if I'm too slow answering them. Yeah.
No, definitely not. I have not gotten that. I don't think I've gotten that part of my Commissar training yet here. So as it goes for tonight, what we were talking about, and this was when Kicker and I were originally planning this channel and what we wanted to talk about, we had a short list of different ideas we wanted to cover, and one of them was Warhammer and Warhammer streaming. So when we were going through to talk about, well, who can we talk about with streaming? Logan, at the beginning of the show, you said, hey, I don't really play a whole lot, or I'm not, but this is why we wanted to bring you on. You certainly have your own experience as it goes to esports and games and commentary from a scene that is much more prolific and has a bigger current presence on the internet when it comes to streaming events than Warhammer. So this was an area where that's what we want to be talking about tonight, because streaming, I think certainly since COVID has happened, has really blown up for Warhammer. But everybody has their thoughts, their critiques, or their ways to have it improve. And we wanted to have our own little roundtable on what can we do to improve Warhammer streaming. And as it relates to Warhammer streaming, is it going to make Warhammer a mainstream game? So that's going to be our discussion for tonight. And I'm ready for some spicy opinions here, folks, or maybe not. We will see. But our first question for today.
It might be a slightly longer episode than usual. I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but please, take the lead, sir.
We'll have at it. So excellent. So our first question. In the background to this, 40K, it's been increasing in popularity, right? More games are being played, more events are being run, more events are being streamed. But we've yet to see the breakthrough, really, to mainstream streaming for Warhammer 40K. Is it coming? What needs to change? And what are we going to be doing to make this part happen? So first question, let's focus on the current state of streaming. What is done well, or what are some of the examples of a entertaining or an informative stream that represents the best of what the game and the hobby can be. So, Logan, what do you see as someone who's experienced in streaming saying, hey, this is what we're doing well? And hold on to your thoughts maybe on what we need to improve on for later. But what is being done well so far with streaming?
It's an interesting one, right? Because for me, the product that we're trying to put across is so incredibly unique. I come from a fighting game background, and the average battle in Street Fighter or Tekken will take 1 or 2 minutes, and you'll play best of two. Sorry, first to two, first to three. That might take 10 to 15 minutes. A single game of Warhammer 40,000 is played over 2.5 to 3 hour rounds, even longer at WTC.
Yep.
And you are presenting a completely different product. You are presenting what is effectively two guys having a conversation standing over a dinner table. And how do you present that in a way that is engaging? I don't think we need to shoot for mainstream. I feel like leaning into what makes this unique and making sure that we are hitting the bases of the core audience is the most important thing, because you pulled out a really, really good point. Especially since COVID and lockdown, this hobby has grown exponentially. You know, my Games Workshop PLC share prices definitely reflect that.
Yeah.
And I know that tournament entry numbers reflect that as well. That's also reflected, I think, on content creators and live streams, and they are growing steadily. But we are all trying to find that format that brings this to the public in a way that is most enjoyable. And I think for me, it's the entertainment aspect and the personality aspect of it, because we are all effectively watching two guys standing at a table for 3 hours. That means I need some personality to keep me engaged, right? And for me, I think the more that we have content creators putting their personalities out there and building fan bases and followings, the more that we will see that reflected in broadcast. And for me, there are certainly technical things and small details that we can tweak and fine tune, and regardless of whether it's War Games Live or the Games Work official stream, you might have things you love and things you might want to change, but realistically, we're there for a bunch of us hanging out watching some other people play Warhammer, and the personality is so important to keep the interest, the engagement, the entertainment, and to relay what's going on in a informed and insightful way.
Yeah. Kicker, your thoughts on this. What does Warhammer streaming currently do well?
Yeah, well, oh man, I'm not trying to be negative on it, but I think Logan said a really good point, that it's just a bunch of people standing around a dinner table, I think is what you called it, just talking. So it's hard to make that entertaining unless you're already in. I think that there's a lot of opportunities, but I think right now we're still very much in an infantile state. Yes, things are 100 times better than they were just 5 years ago, but really the content out there is just for people who are already 40K fans, and that's fine. But I think that'd be cool if we could kind of expand past just engaging the current customer or the current players. I think that if there's a way we can engage the outsiders to make it exciting, that would really help us grow in many, many ways. Is that possible? I don't know. Joe, we mentioned Joe earlier. Joe of War Games Live just does a great job of putting up rules and info on the screen, and that's like the first step to helping outsiders that don't know what's going on at least be able to see, oh, that's the rule that just got applied. But I think that is just the beginning. You really have to have that content. Like, I don't even know if that's the way to do it. I think what I would pitch, and I know you're not asking me for what you're asking me for what's good, and I'm kind of just saying what's bad. But my recommendation, man, is you just need to condense this stuff from a 3-hour-long game into a highlights reel. And yes, that means you're cutting out a lot, but at least you get that entertainment value, which I think if anyone's going to watch anything, they want to be entertained. So if you packed it into like a 30-minute highlights reel, that would be amazing. But the problem is that editing, and I mean, Logan's a full-time content creator and streamer, and Nick, you do a lot of this stuff right now. Editing is a time-consuming process that no one really wants to do, especially because this stuff is so it kind of is no longer relevant after a week or two, right? I mean, it's so time sensitive. So if you can't edit that stuff Sunday night after the event, by next week it's no longer of interest to people.
Yeah, I mean, we see just some of the examples, right? Where recently more DACA
Yeah,
was changed,
yeah,
right? So that
it's
that
gone.
had a shelf life of what, 2 or 3 weeks. So if you're any
Yeah,
kind of content creator focusing on that, or I even think during COVID there were a number of different studios and groups that would go and do battle reports, stream them. A lot of them stopped doing that, not long after COVID was over, because the amount of work that goes into it, and some of that continue it, are mostly just doing live battle reports, right? Where it's, hey, they have a good video product, good audio, but they're not doing any editing. And Logan, to your point there, that it can get a little bit messy. You have to have people that are comfortable, being on stream for that to be good. And they have to be able to talk about the game well and be able to present a good product. I think just even this weekend at BEA, somebody was Melody was doing commentary with Joe, and Melody may be upset with me for saying that, but somebody had asked her, like, why are you streaming? Why are you doing commentary? What have you won? And it's like, that's the
oh wow,
wrong question.
yeah,
Just because, right? Like, just because someone wins at 40K does not make them a good commentator, or does not make them good for the stream, right? Not necessarily. It
So
is two
if
different
I
segments.
got Street Fighter commentary gigs based on what I've won, I would have to find a new job.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah,
And I think about it, Logan. I don't know how familiar you are with the NFL,
of
here
course.
here in America, but
yeah,
I grew up a Tom Brady fan, right? And
Mhm.
greatest of all time. He has been beat up and knocked down as it goes to a commentator, because he's not very good at it, folks,
yeah.
right?
It's a different
Uh,
skill set. It's a
it's a
totally different skill set.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I
You
wanted. Oh, go
but
ahead.
something that, because I don't want to poo-poo on the streamers. I think there's streamers that we have are doing the best they can do using very few resources, right?
Mhm.
Like that's something that should be applauded. Is we have quite a few streamers out there that are doing this on a shoestring budget, and a lot of times unsupported. They don't have major sponsors. They
Yeah.
don't have other human beings other than themselves that are doing this. Like look at Joe. He's a one-man band. And that guy, like in a lot of other industries, or let's call it sports, there'll be a whole team of guys
Mhm.
setting up a whole production for a weekend. Here, it's
Of
like maybe one,
course.
maybe two people, right? It's
It's
so
truly incredible what Joe does, because
Yeah.
the amount of dedication and commitment that he is able to put into
yeah,
traveling to these events, not just in North America. He's of course flown out to the LGT with all of his equipment
yeah,
and
yeah,
broadcast there. He's broadcast WTC before. It's an unbelievable amount of commitment, and you can't just expect that to continue indefinitely. And we
yeah,
do certainly need. You made a great point, Kicker, about the requirement of you know uh, resources to
yes,
edit and make post content. One of the things that I've really enjoyed recently are the post game videos that Art of War do
yeah,
on their bat reps on their channel,
yeah,
and they're super useful, super insightful. They'll do those kind of edits, but of course they are a content creating machine that has been at the forefront, and they've monetized it for a long time now. Nick's doing a great job making sure that that is continually growing, and they're upgrading what they're capable of putting out. But it shows you that it's not something that you can kind of just turn on overnight. And a lot of the live streaming side, because I think content creation and live streaming, whilst
Different.
very similar, are their own
yeah.
unique beasts. Um, even just doing highlights post, that's not live
That's
streaming.
not much.
It's you're making content off the back of it. And I think in order to get people to sit down and just hang out in chat and watch an event, that has its own unique problems. Getting people to watch a edited down bat rep, I think, is a lot easier. And it's a really great point, Kicker, that I would love to see post event content. One of the things I was actually talking to some people about previously was something I see in esports happen is content creators will restream events. So, say for example, you have,
Oh,
um, the World Championships of Warhammer, which is
Mhm.
streamed by Games Workshop directly on their channel. Now, if you were a content creator, say in the esports world, you would restream that on your channel to your following, to your viewers. You would talk over the top of it. You would add your own spin, and you just chat and engage. And what would happen is Games Workshop would aggregate your metrics off your restream, and everyone else that was doing it, fold it into their metrics for their main channel, and it would boost the numbers that way. And everyone wins because the content creators get their
Yeah.
own following. They're able
Yeah.
to broadcast. They can put that then and cut that down for their YouTube. They can have it on their Twitch VODs. It's certainly a lot harder to do at community events because someone like War Games Live Joe relies on the viewers being in his channel and him he isn't getting big sponsors that are subsidizing it. He needs the audience, he needs the content himself. So we're kind of in this awkward position where we need a wider reach, whether that's a more casual viewer or a wider reach to the hardcore competitive, and just getting those guys locked in and watching events, and it being financially sustainable with the amount of effort, money, and time that needs to be put into it. So it's certainly something that I don't envy as a problem, and I'm incredibly, the guys that are doing it, I applaud you.
Yeah, kudos to them. Let's give them a round of applause. I mean, they earned that. They earned that and way more, man.
Way more. Yeah. So we'll go to question 2 here, and Logan, you in your response to question 1, you brought this up, and I knew that I didn't have to ask a follow-up question because I knew it was coming as question number 2. You mentioned the audience, and I think this is the big question, right? When you see streaming, who is the intended audience? I think when I'm in the StatCheck Discord and people are watching live streams, there's often a perception that, hey, this needs to be a stream for competitive players. Competitive players are what, 1% of the actual people that buy, less than 1%, right? Of people that actually buy models and that play the game. So it's a much bigger game. When it comes to streaming, who is or who should be the intended audience? Should it be that competitive level of player? Should it be the general audience, or should it be the people that play one event per month? Or does it depend on the stream? Are there going to be different streams that have different levels of engagement?
You've raised a really good point that I don't hear people talking about a lot, and I want to approach it from a different angle, because you mentioned that the comp scene only comprises a small percentage of Games Workshop's the marketplace.
Right.
Now, in anything else that we compare to, whether it's esports, whether it's like Magic the Gathering, their marketplace is all people that are only playing the game. Games Workshop make the majority of their revenue from people who buy the kits and either build them on display or leave the boxes in the closet like we all do. That's the majority of their revenue. They also make a lot of revenue from people who buy them, assemble them, put loads of time into painting. And the competitive organized play lane is one of several ways to engage with Warhammer. And that's quite unique compared to all of the other things that we're, comparing it to from a broadcast standpoint. So we're already a niche within a niche. I think that, however, the numbers show that there are enough people there if we're able to focus the attention from various different communities. And when I say communities, I mean regional, not, painting and casual and, Australia, Europe. There's multiple within Europe with the language situations. North America, the USA and Canada would be independent of themselves as well. There's lots of areas and growing in Asia, well, which is fantastic. If we can bring everyone's attention to the major events that are happening throughout the year, and I don't just mean the Warhammer Open series. Obviously, you guys do fantastic events. We still have FLG putting on big events as well. Obviously, you have stuff happening in Europe all the time. UKTC don't have a regular stream, but Epic Flail do certainly do a good job there, and WTC. If we were able to get more of the eyes together and focusing on the events, I think we would see the numbers grow really, really healthily. I'll ask you on the other side as well. When you're talking about creating a broadcast that's more casual friendly, I don't see coverage of painting competitions presented in a way for people that don't try and paint really well, for people that use contrast paints. They lean into the excellence of what they're doing. And for me, I think that's very important, because you create an informed viewership. And you can look at something that's a really, really good example of this in sports. And that for me would be the UFC, because the UFC went from a broadcast that was generally watched by guys that wanted to watch cage fighting and would boo, any mat work, no respect for jiu-jitsu. They just wanted slugging Tank Abbott types, to where we are 10, 15, 20 years later, where the audience has a really high IQ in terms of what they're watching, because they've been informed, they've been presented the information, they're given the jargon and the lingo to assimilate. They're given the insight. They're not spoken down to. They are spoken at a level, and then they have to rise themselves up to it. And I don't think that means we just completely, confuddle people watching by making, the like gatekeeping effectively the broadcast, so that no one knows what's going on. But I don't think we need to shoot down and baby the audience. I think that's a different type of content in itself. And I'll go back to personalities and content creators and restreams and edited versions post event. But the mainstream, I love the idea of providing the audience with the information and the insight so that they can raise their in-game IQ and understand why this guy is really great at playing Warhammer. Because I think that's something that's not understood even by many people that go to tournaments. They generally go to tournaments as a social activity. Not a lot of people have the insight into what it means to truly be very good at this game.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Logan, we'll get to the commentator role in this with question 3. But kicker, question 2, for you as it goes to this, who is the target audience for streaming? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I do want to say first, I really do like Logan's idea of raising the audience's in-game IQ. I think that's a really cool concept, and it totally makes sense. Let's inform them, and anyway, I love it. I am always surprised at just how many, we're going to use the word casuals, that never go to tournaments, never play in leagues, but they still watch the live streams weekly. Every weekend they're seeing what's happening. And that surprised me the first time I learned about this. So I think the real growth is to capture, obviously, the gameplay, but all aspects of an event, because I think the casuals who obviously enjoy the hobby in their own way, which might just be painting but not attending, would enjoy that content that much more. You see, like, we could add more in-depth videos of the hobby showcases at each event, looking at each best painted armies and why they made that showcase or why they made that top cut. Interviews with the creators of those armies too, like why, how much time they spent painting that, or what was the theme they were going with. Spotlight segments possibly on teams that have traveled in and maybe their path to victory or their journey to that particular event, and something that would really showcase the camaraderie of that forms at these events. I think that that's a really cool story I see constantly unfold at least at the events I run for Green Banner and whatnot. Is you see these people that come in literally as opponents. They're going in to battle each other out on the tabletop, and they leave as friends. And I think that's something that could really become cool content to focus on. So yeah, I think that is the real goal is to capture all elements of this hobby, not just the who wins the round.
I want to just compound on that, because that is a really, really good perspective to have. Although, again, it leans into produced post-event content. But if you're someone that follows War Games Live, for example, or any, Tabletop Live and all those channels, one thing that I notice week to week is I can't tell which event I'm at. Because they all effectively look the same, right? Because they have the same. Joe takes his setup. It's the PTZs going on the thing. The boards are the boards. The armies are brought by the players anyway. And when you have top-down camera, side on, you can't really tell which event differentiates from which, and it kind of then blends into one in terms of coverage. So things that can lean into the unique strengths and experiences of these events, I think is wonderful, because if you're looking at events like, LVO, which have over 1,000 people, if I'm watching the stream and I just see top down tabletop, 2 guys at a table, that spectacle of what LVO isn't conveyed to me.
Yeah, it's the same
as
as
a
anything
viewer
else.
at home. I don't get the same FOMO as if there were, shots in between, interviews on the floor, panning around the room into the different rooms that you have, and really leaning into that aspect. And I think a way to get that across on the stream would be wonderful, but very much content that leads into and post event is super important. But again, resources are the key thing here. To be able to edit, film, get stuff up, get stuff out afterwards, it's manpower, it's hours, it's money, and those are all things that certainly are a big drain on all of our budgets for events.
Yeah, Logan, I'll be honest. I mean, Kicker, you were at Adepticon a couple weeks ago. The most exciting thing to me about Adepticon coverage was actually Rob, the Honest Wargamer, his Adepticon review and coverage of it, where it was some of it was kind of B-reel footage as he's going and checking the booths and interviewing players. And Rob has his own unique sense of humor, which I very much enjoy and appreciate. But as I heard from people playing at the event, oh, that's cool. But Logan, to your point, it's kind of it's an event like any other. But Rob's and that's the sort of thing where he was spending time dedicated to do that. I would love to see more of that from other events. And I think
the amazing thing about this hobby is it's not something I do in my house looking at a screen, right? It's one of the few things that I still have to go out and do in person. As Kicker said at the start, my speed dating weekend with other dudes in their 30s and 40s, maybe younger. But it's a unique thing. And we have to really double down on the unique strengths of our community and our hobby to put them across to attract new people, casuals. Like, what's this thing that's going on? Like, why would I want to go here? What makes it look impressive? Why should I go to this instead of any of the other things I could do? Especially when people are so comfortable and happy to just sit in their house and play video games of a weekend instead and use their free time that way. Why should I come out? Why should I do this? What makes it look cool? What's the experience that I'm missing out on? Lean into that FOMO. And I definitely think that would be a great thing for everybody involved.
Yeah. All right. I'll move us to question 3. And Logan, I alluded to this earlier that we'd be bringing this one up. So when it comes to streaming events, games, commentary and the personality of the commentators matters. This can also relate to the players that are on the stream, right? I mean, I think we've all seen examples where, or we've all had examples in real life where your opponent is not very engaging. And certainly if that is something on stream, that can make it a not great experience for those watching. Do we need to, I brought this up earlier. Does a good player make a good commentator? What do we need to do from a commentary standpoint? And then the other aspect of this, if we want to jump into this one, this could be the spicy part. Does having players mic, should that be a requirement? Does that matter? Do we need to do that? Yes or no? So commentating on games, what do we need there? And do players need to be mic'd to improve that experience?
I think me and Kicker are aligned on quite a lot of this, so I'm going to try not to step on his toes because I know he's got some insight here. But for me, strictly speaking, as a commentator, I'll try and stay in my lane here because mic'd up players is a different discussion.
Yeah,
there is certainly a problem that we have run into where the people who are informed enough to adequately convey what is happening by strictly looking at board state, those people that possess that ability are probably playing in the tournament.
Yeah.
Which means you're making, you're asking something very, very difficult of people that have a good overall understanding of what Warhammer 40,000 is, but certainly not the ability to look at a camera shot of a board and know exactly what we're seeing now, the threats for a turn, 2 turns down the line, what the player needs to be looking out for, where you expect, because it's not like esports where I can commentate play by play as stuff happens and lights flash on the screen and the HUD displays things that are happening constantly, so I can play by play and make it exciting. Right. It's 2 dudes standing at a table, rolling dice, moving their little guys around, moving a tape measure. It's not visually exciting. So we need to insert the entertainment there. So you can either be someone who's a really big personality and make it enjoyable that way, or you can be someone who is really, really insightful and can give a fantastic breakdown of board state, or you could be a unicorn in the world of broadcasting and be both And I do think we have a few people like that. I personally really enjoyed Joe and Jack Harpster commentating a couple months ago.
Yep.
And that's why I'm saying to you, a lot of these guys that are involved in content creation, and a lot of them do come out of a house in Florida. They're very good at speaking because they've had to be to create the content. And they're also playing at a level where they have the insight. And I think we're going to see more and more rotation of, am I going to play? Am I going to commentate? I'm going to be part of the broadcast. We saw Nick Nanavati do it, of course, for a season. He was the Warhammer Open commentator with Paul. And then the next season, he wanted to have a real go at it with his sisters and push for WTC. And that was great as well. And I think that it's difficult to nail someone down as you are talent whilst you don't have the analysis insight. Now, one way to help that is to have a stream of information so you know what is going on the tabletop, and maybe miking up the players will help. What do you think, Kicker?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having someone mic'd up is so incredibly valuable. Not only to understand the thought process of what the player is doing and not trying to guess what they're doing, but actually know. But I think the other big thing about having players mic'd up is that you get to know these individuals better, right? The goal should be to turn these anonymous players into personalities that we potentially love or maybe we hate. But the idea is that they become characters in a story that we're following, and that by having a person mic'd up, we're able to listen to that player talk, allows us to maybe connect a little bit better with them as human beings, which results in us actually caring about the outcome of the game more. So the miking of the players has just got kind of two really big things. It allows us to actually know what they're planning on doing, and then B, allows for that person to become a human being, that anonymous player to be a human being that we all of a sudden invest a lot of our time and interest following. Nick, I know you've been on stream a few times. As somebody that has been on stream, have you been mic'd or were you not mic'd?
Both.
Both.
Yeah. So I've played on stream twice. Once for a local store that was streaming and it was mic'd, and then I've played on the GW stream, which was obviously not mic'd.
Yeah. Does
right?
it? Do you like? Okay. Is there? Does it stress you out? As a player, you're on. Being mic'd up. I mean, is that something you're concerned about?
To me, and this is where obviously people, I've played on stream, and to me, that's no nerves. But
Yeah.
I realize that I'm somewhat special. I'm used to.
You're extroverted. You're talking to son of a bitch like me. You
Yep.
don't have. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to it. I mean, between my work and other things that I've done in my career, I'm used to speaking in front of rooms of thousands of people or having things that are going to be broadcast, or I'm just even used to presenting, right? So to me, it's very normal and casual. But I understand that for a lot of people going into the community, it can be more difficult to get into that process. But it is, Logan, you mentioned as it was like, hey, what are you watching? Are you watching the game state or having some of those parts set? And I've seen just between my two experiences playing on stream, because I wanted to go back and rewatch them after the event.
Yep.
And
Really valuable.
Yep. And the part where I can say my own experience in watching the game where I was mic'd and the commentators knew what was happening, and I couldn't hear them, but they could hear me, right? They knew what was happening, and when I went back and rewatched it, it was almost like it was a free coaching class for me. Oh, I should have done this, or I should have considered this. Whereas when I was watching my game on the GW stream, there's a lot of assumptions that are made, and sometimes incorrect ones as it goes to that information. And
they're working with super limited information, right? So how can you?
Yep, exactly. So there's a part of it there where it's like, hey, you can't really have a good product, or that product can't be the best that it can be without that missing piece of information. But with that, I'll take us to our wildcard questions here at the end, because these are parts that will wrap up about streaming. The big question here, and this is what everybody talks about, where it's like, oh, streaming and Warhammer 40K as a game should be mainstream. Logan, kicker, should 40K game streaming, should it actually be mainstream? Do we want it to be mainstream, or is it too much of its own niche where it should just be good at what it does?
That's such a vague question, because what does mainstream mean? What are you implying we are like? What's the cost that you're implying for it to be mainstream? Do we feel that Warhammer as a game is robust enough to withstand the scrutiny of more viewers? I mean, we've all seen what happens on Reddit on a Monday after a controversial event, right? So Do we want more of that? And that then brings us into discussions about, how tight the rules system is, how we deal with misplays and mistakes and poor sportsmanship and unacceptable antisocial behavior at the tabletop. There's all manner of conversations that need to happen before we get down the line of, are we streaming this game in a big arena with lights and player walkouts and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can do all of that and it remains a really positive community, great. But as someone that's come from esports, I know that there's always sacrifices. And I don't know if Warhammer 40,000 10th edition in the year 2025 is something that will hold up to come and play in a $20,000 invitational, live. I don't think it will hold up as yet. Will it never? We can't say. I would love it if it did go mainstream, but it's a very what if question.
Yeah. Kicker, how about for you?
I mean, so mainstream is once again kind of a hard term to define, but I'll tell you, my wife is not at all, familiar with the hobby that we love, right? And most of our coworkers, she works a very professional job. None of them do any of this stuff, but even they are starting to get, they know. You mentioned Warhammer, like, oh yeah, I've heard of Warhammer before, So at least it's becoming something they're like aware of in some form or another. But so yes, I do want to go mainstream. I think it is getting more popular, but I don't think it's ever going to become, I don't know, like Star Wars, it's just, or hell, even Pokemon, it's just, I just don't think it's going to happen for many reasons. It's a complicated game. It's a big investment. There is this argument that I have seen for years and that I absolutely hate. It's that there's some people out there who don't want to become mainstream because they want to keep it like exclusive or something. And I hate those people. I hate the idea of making this like their thing. No, it can be everyone's thing. But I really think we should be embracing new players at every opportunity. Let's open up the hobby to a wider reach. More women in the hobby, more young adults, hell, more old adults. It doesn't make a difference. The way I say it, the more people that we get into the hobby, the more friends we can make at events and whatnot. So I'm not sure what the angle is to make it more approachable for different demographics and categories of human being, but that is my hope, and maybe by bringing in more factions that people can agree to, maybe bring the price down a little bit more on the miniatures. Those would be ways to hopefully bring in people. I did see a Young Bloods tournament for the first time ever that I had seen.
Cool idea.
Yeah, right.
And it's so obvious as well. It's literally right there. They do it in the painting competitions. Wow.
They do it for the painting competitions. And so I saw this Young Blood competitive tournament at Adepticon that was 16 and under. And it was like 30 kids. And they all had their parents there on the sidelines, just like at a soccer tournament, like rooting for their kids. And emotionally, it was beautiful.
Wow.
Absolutely beautiful. And I think we need more of that. That is my dream. And that will only help it become more mainstream. And like I said, I think by me mainstream, it just means more people are aware of it or somehow involved with it. But yeah, I'm rambling here. Nick, take us to the second question, man.
Yeah, and this one, because we've mentioned some streamers, some commentators, throughout the course of the show here. But Logan and Kicker, as we wrap up here, is there one commentator, one streamer, one content creator that you really look at and kind of say, hey, this is what I want to see more of across the board? Someone who's an innovator or someone who's helping to raise that IQ particularly well as it relates to the game and getting people into it. Anybody in particular you want to shout out?
I think for me, there's two people. I'm not going to say Anthony Vanella because he's a miserable, sarcastic bastard just like myself. But he's my good friend and I love him dearly. I'm going to say, first up, John Lennon, because he embodies everything that is good about competitive Warhammer 40,000. And if I was to put someone in a capsule and shoot them off into space as an ambassador of what good-natured, positive, playing hard, but being a real stand-up person, I'd definitely say John Lennon. And personally, for me, I love the stat check guys. Innes Wilson is one of the nicest human beings I've had the pleasure of interacting with. He's always got time for everybody. He literally is overflowing with love and enthusiasm for Warhammer 40,000 tournament play at all times, and I'm so happy that he's in a position where he can, earn a living doing that, because it's so clear that he loves it so much, and he's just such a nice guy. He plays the right way, and he's really damn good as well. So yeah, those two I think I would certainly pick.
All right, Kicker, how about for you?
Well, he got to pick two, so I'm going to pick two. All right. So Adam Camilleri, he's just a damn good human being with a big heart whose energy captivates everyone, right? Like his energy is just, it's infectious. And I think that's what we're talking about, mass appeal. That's the kind of guy I think can bring in the masses in many ways. Um, um, I think, though, I also have to, mention Anthony Vanilla. I know that you didn't, but I really respect Anthony Vanilla. He tells it like it is. He does not put up with bullshit. A few years back, I was in his sights. I was a target in his sights, and you know what? Criticism hurts. Everyone gets hurt by criticism, but it opens the door for growth if you have the right mindset. If you can accept somebody like Anthony who can say it like it is, then this is the kind of guy that's going to help push and grow our community of players, organizers, judges to get better and better and better. So I think Anthony is obviously an accomplished player and a knowledgeable player, but I like that he's not censored, and I really, really appreciate that in a community like this. So
he's very even-handed as well, where he's not just like engagement farming for negativity, because he'll give you all the credit in the world if you deliver. And I've seen him do that. But you're right. If something is the drizzling shits, he'll tell you that as well.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that. So what about you, Nick? You follow a lot of content. Come on, you have to have a favorite streamer.
And Logan, you mentioned him earlier, but he's an amazing player and is a world-renowned player. But Jack Harpster, I think,
of course,
and particularly when he's gone with Joe, I think those have been the most informative and engaging streams. Even a couple of years ago, Kicker, I was supposed to be traveling out to you with an event, and I got sick with COVID, couldn't go, but stayed home, and while I was sick, had the stream going, and even my wife, who does not know Warhammer, but watches a lot of sports commentary, watches a lot of sports. We know even if you don't know the sport, you can figure out what's happening. And at one point, she had mentioned this to me. We're like, hey, this is because I have a lot of Warhammer on in the background or whatever throughout weekends. But with Jack and Joe, the two of them as that combination, that was where, as she's watching it, she's like, oh, I even can get like what's happening here, right? So it was that part where it was explaining the game at a high state, but also being able to explain the play-by-play in a way that got people engaged, tell them what's going on. You still have to do a little bit of work yourself, but that, to me, I think that is the dynamic duo. So if we can find a way to, I don't know, maybe it's clone Jack and like get him to travel around with Joe. maybe we can do that.
That's the answer right there. Just clone him.
But with that, guys, that'll be it for our episode. And Logan, thank you first and foremost for accepting our epic challenge. This was really a pleasure to have you on, and something that you and I have interacted on various Discords over the last, 5, 6, 7 years in this Warhammer community. And this is an area where I know that you're very engaged with it from the work that you do, and you're also passionate about this game. And I think that's the key point that we really want to drive. And what we want to do with this show is we all want this to get better. We're not satisfied necessarily with the status quo. We do want to make this a bigger game. We do want this to be a game that does improve its product, and we want to get more people going to tournaments. So I really
Nick,
appreciate
I gotta pull back the curtain a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
This wonderful human being here, Logan, reached out to us when he heard about Green Banner growing and the Challengers Cup, and he's just another one of those amazing members of the community. He offered to help because he has got quite a bit of expertise in various fields. So it's amazing to have guys like this that are so dedicated to the community and the hobby that are trying to spend a lot of their time because Logan, you've given a lot of time to us to help grow Green Banner in the Challengers Cup. So thank you so much for that, man. I really do want to go on record for saying thank you.
I mean, I truly believe in the potential for growing this hobby as not just a streamable thing, but just something that attracts more and more people when you present it in the right way. Warhammer tournaments are not something to be scared of. You're not going to play against, those people are few and far between. There's the very best players in the world are some of the nicest guys you'll ever play. Yes, they'll completely stomp you 20-0, but you'll have an absolute pleasurable time doing it more often than not. And the Green Banner stuff, it's got me really, really excited, to be honest with you. I'm really looking forward to Challengers Cup. It's going to be a great event, and I'll be looking forward to experiencing it. Thank you.
Okay, so Logan, you're going to, I think it's Birmingham. Is that the one that's, or Manchester? What's the big event? You're going to?
So actually, I did go to Manchester, but I'm going to a Glasshammer.
Glasshammer, that's it. Glasshammer.
That's in Birmingham this weekend. So fingers crossed I can get these goremongers painted in 4 days. I'm a little bit worried about it though, actually, because I have a DJ booking on Friday night that is at 4 a.m. in the morning. So technically 4 a.m. Saturday, and doors open at the tournament at 8:30, and it's 2 hours away from where I live. So
that is an endurance thing there, man.
Yeah, the missus is threatening to forbid me from doing it because sleep deprivation does kill. But I'm going to try and power through. Shh, don't tell. But yeah, I've been doing that, and I'll be continuing trying to get some content together with vlogs, some of my activities, and how I engage with the hobby again, and having loads of fun with that. So big up Morgan and Lawrence, my partners in crime, engage on all fronts. And yeah, that's about it.
Excellent. So Kicker, Logan, thank you. And check out Engage on All Fronts. That's his Logan's stream, and where you can find him for his 40K journey. Kicker, what do we have for next week?
It seems like a lot of people really appreciated our judge episode, the one that we had with the Green Banner head judge, Jason McKenzie. So we want to do another show with a head judge who's got a ton of street cred, but a very different game system. So we'll see how much advice he can give us and whatnot. So stay tuned for next week. Nick, you want to take us out?
Yeah, and I'll let Kicker. Next week's episode it's going to be between you and me. We talk a lot with our guests on the third episode. This might be the 3 most talkative people I know in one YouTube channel. So we're going to see how that one goes, but it'll be a great episode. But everybody, thanks again for tuning in for this epic challenge. We appreciate you. Hope go out and like Logan said and like Kicker said, go out and play your Warhammer games. This is the great thing about the hobby. Make, whether it's an RTT, 3 new friends, or 6 new friends at a GT, or 9 friends at a super major. Go out for your speed dating, get your Warhammer games in. We'll see you next week, folks. Have a good night.
Thanks for listening to Epic Challenge. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And be sure to check out Green Banner Event Co., the ones who help make this show possible. Tune in next week for another Epic Challenge.